Can you remember the first time you saw your work in a theater?
In a movie theater?
In a movie theater or on a television screen or something that was large scale?
Oh, brother. I can remember sitting in a movie theater before a movie, during the trailers. I worked on the trailer for the James Bond movie, The World Is Not Enough. And I did the whole opening of that trailer where you're basically flying through the 007 logo, but you can't really tell what it is. It's just a bunch of reflections, and you see images of Sophie Marceau pop up, and what is Charlie Sheen's ex-wife's name?
Richards?
Yeah, Denise Richards.
Denise Richards, right.
So Denise Richards, Sophie Marceau. I hope that it's Sophie Marceau. Anyway, so I'm watching this and I'm seeing it in the theater for the first time. And I'm sitting next to someone I don't know at all. And I turn and I'm like, I did that. So I remember that. I don't typically remember a lot. Like I remember a lot during when I watched Minority Report, because I worked on so much of that movie. It's like 20 minutes of screen time that I worked on. So I'm like, oh, I did that. And I did that. 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 So after a while, it just becomes, man, that's kind of it. Those are the only two times I really remember sitting in a movie theater and going, oh my gosh, like I'm super connected to what I'm looking at on screen that I did. A lot of the work I've done has been on TV. And so that work, I don't, who do you turn to? I turn to my wife. I guess the subject area to cover is visual effects for film and TV. Visual effects, a lot of people call it special effects, the lay people in the world, but it's not. Special effects are effects that happen in camera. Like, oh, a knife, blood, that's all special effects. Oh, a car exploding, like, oh, we're going to rig it up with explosives and blow it up. Those are special effects. Visual effects are the effects that happen after production. They happen in post-production. Now, they used to happen on optical printers. They used to happen like with analog, image manipulation equipment. But now it's all done in software, generally speaking. So that I do that. But the minute you tell people that, they're like, oh, so you're an editor. I'm like, no. I mean, I've edited a lot, which is the cutting of the material that got captured during production. In olden days, we called it film. We filmed it. So we would cut the film. And I've done that. I've done a lot of that. The bread and butter work, though, has been visual effects. And that's an interesting field that you can't talk about without talking a little bit about politics.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we can skirt that part of it as much as possible, great.
Well, here's the thing about politics. Political discussion typically goes into Republicans and Democrats, which I don't care for either of those two groups. Those two groups are those politicians in those two groups are corrupt. They're all owned by lobbyists. But that's where the problem starts in the film industry. So with the film industry, we have things that are called tax subsidies. And a state like Louisiana or Georgia. Georgia's got a huge tax subsidy. So what Georgia will do is they will pay through tax subsidies these hugely profitable media corporations untold amounts of money so that they bring their production to Georgia to create jobs. But those jobs are all transient. They're like, they turn people into the equivalent of a migrant field worker. especially in visual effects. So the visual effects people who are all typically situated in Hollywood all then go to New Orleans to work on a show. And then the tax subsidy that is, based on their payroll, they get paid, and then they deposit their money that from their paycheck into their bank account, which is typically in California. That money doesn't typically stay in the state. And then you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into that. Basically, it boils down to this. For every dollar spent in a tax subsidy, your tax money going into a hugely profitable media corporation, it doesn't create jobs in your state.
I see.
It doesn't keep the money in your state. You actually get back less than $1 for every dollar spent. And that's a political conversation.
So the actual only real benefit a town would see, and I think of a town near here that was all several years ago when a major Johnny Depp movie filmed here.
Yep.
And they remodeled a lot of the town and did a lot of stuff, but they were did their thing and left.
Yep.
And it just, you can go watch them maybe from a distance, but that's pretty much like the only benefit you get from a film crew coming, right?
Yeah. I think that is. If you want to ogle movie stars, I've yet to meet a movie star who I would really want to spend time with.
Really?
Any length of time.
I mean, yeah. I don't want to necessarily call anybody out, but I mean, I assume you've met a lot of famous people.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
And many of them are super nice, super friendly, great people. Others are like horrible. They're just like they're people.
Yep.
You meet people and you're like, oh my, that person's horrible, and oh, that person's kind of cool, but yeah, I mean, they're just people who are super wealthy, mm-hmm. which tends to distance them from the rest of us, psychologically.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's actually one of the reasons I decided to start doing this. I mean,
was to become a famous person who's millions of dollars.
Yes, and then shit on everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Anyone who supported me my whole life, no, I don't know you anymore. No, I actually, I spent a lot of time watching different podcasts, and I'm watching this stuff, and I'm like, I cannot relate on a personal level to any of you people. You're all far wealthier than I am, and you talk about things that they're interesting, sure, but I'm never going to see a Land Rover that can crawl up mountains and do whatever the stuff you're talking about. It's just like, well, maybe I'll do it and just have regular people on here, because I kind of feel like regular folks should be promoted over stuff like that.
Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit. As regards to where this conversation started, the movie industry, with like my work in the movie industry. The work I do is very boring. It's just a job. It's a very boring job. Excuse me. You go to work every day, you sit down at a computer, and then you just move the mouse around and you click buttons on screen, and then you make things that are hopefully pretty, but ultimately you're answering to the creative vision of someone else. So when I'm doing the work that is as creative as it can get, I'm just a commercial artist. And a commercial artist to me is an artisan and not an artist. You're a craftsman. Mm-hmm. Craftsman, you can transcend the level of being just a craftsman and make beautiful pieces with your craft, but ultimately it's for somebody else. It's not your vision.
Right.
And what little bits of your vision you can sneak in there, somebody else is ultimately going to have the veto capability on that. So it's really a job. And if you want a creative outlet, don't get into this job, because it's over time. Like in the beginning, I could just ignore storyboards. I'd get storyboards and I'd be like, No, I could come up with something much better than that. And then I would re-envision it myself and make something when I had far more creative control in the early days of doing what I do.
Hmm.
And that doesn't exist anymore at all.
Really? Like no input whatsoever. You just
You get a little bit of input, but it's
just so
yeah,
minimal. It's like, well,
yeah, it's so minimal. And to that end, if you really want that kind of creative outlet, go make your own movie.
yeah, or little mini movies once a week.
Yeah, or little mini movies once a week. If you have a story to tell, write it down and then publish it. And then people can read your story. Or commit your story to video, or make it an audio play, like an old radio play. You've got plenty of avenues out there to exercise your own creative freedom. Go use those. But my job doesn't have any creative freedom. And so I've super specialized within my field into an area where there's absolutely nothing creative about it. I never get a single creative note because we joke about the creative notes in my field, because a lot of times you'll get creative notes that are 100% subjective and 0% objective.
Okay.
The adjectives used to describe what they want will be 100% qualitative and 0% quantitative. So it's not like make it bigger. Okay, that's quantitative. I can obviously make something bigger. Make it blue. That's a qualitative note. But they'll say, it feels like it wants to be more ethereal. Like what? Totally qualitative. Like you don't know what the hell that, and you can interpret that in any one of different ways. And what that means to me is that the people giving those notes don't really know what they want. They just want to go on a fishing expedition.
Okay, so they want you to pull something out, and then it's magically their idea.
Yeah, I've worked with great directors who are great directors. They direct you. They tell you, and they use a lot of verbs. But these other types of directors, and they're rarer, but they still use these goofy, like, it feels contrived. I'm like, everything's contrived.
Well, yeah.
Any idea you come up with is a contrivance. It's like, so what does that mean to you? It's like, so when I hear those directors, I don't call them directors. I call them selectors. They direct a movie like they're picking out curtains at IKEA. I like it, but can we see a gingham? Okay.
Huh?
Yeah. All right. How about a paisley? So it's
interesting.
Yeah. And I'm also old enough now that I kind of don't care.
Yeah. I'm finding I care less and less about things the older I get.
Right. You care less and less about it. Maybe that should be the overreaching subject of your podcast, is the older you get, the less you care.
Well, and I think that's probably going to become pretty evident. I don't know. It just, I've had a couple people ask me, why are you doing this? What do you, like you, jokingly, oh, you want to be famous? No, I'm doing this for me. It's a fun project.
Yeah.
It gives me something to do. And if it gets anywhere, great. If not, grandkids have something to watch 50 years from now if we haven't been hit by an EMP or an asteroid or cooked the planet. So
I think you and I are going to escape that just barely.
I think so too. Although there's a part of me that wonders every once in a great while, it's like, am I here to bear witness to the end? Because it sure feels like it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, is that my role? Is I'm supposed to take all this in and then when it's all over, take it wherever it's supposed to go? I don't know. But it's kind of
yeah.
feels that way.
Little Truman Show-esque.
Yeah, and the older I get, I'm adopting more of a George Carlin outlook on life, where people as a group, individually though, people are fascinating, and everybody has a story whether they know it or not. So, I guess this is my story or whatever you want to call it. And just, like I said, just something to do to pass the time. And I know some damn interesting people. So,
Like who? Why
um,
am I on this show?
I have been questioning that, because I'll tell you why you're on the show is because I love the conversations we have. It expands my mind greatly talking to you about anything. So just because I dig your perspective on things, I mean, and it's interesting to me. We come from the same area, and this is a lot of the people that I'm talking to. We all come from the same area, and it just like an explosion of who's gone where to do what. And I think it's fascinating. I mean, we have a ton of mutual friends that do a lot of different things. Half of them, I don't even know what they do. I know, like you. Okay, I know you're in the post-production business. That's what I know. I have no idea what that entails. And I mean, I like tinkering with videos just to see what I can do, and so I'm like at the baby steps where you're like, kid, you have no idea, you know.
I'm never gonna do that. I hope I never sound like that.
I hope I do. Get off my lawn. To the check engine light. I kind of went through the similar thing. I used to live my life kind of like a certain giant green rage monster in, just run through, don't think, just smash. And now I just want to, I want to not do that anymore. But I've realized, all that smashing has kind of done some damage on the inside, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I just figure, I think I should stop with that. So eating healthy, drinking a boatload of water. I will occasionally, and when I say occasionally, I mean once every 6 months, drink a beer, have a cocktail. But yeah, what's amazing to me is I've always been a big guy, you know that. I started in May, actually, in mid-May, doing the keto diet and sticking with it and actually tracking what I ate, drank, whatever. And I'm down 40 pounds since May. To me, that's great. I feel better.
Oh yeah,
I'm told I look better. I don't know. I think I look like whatever.
you do look better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we talked with a conversation several months ago. You were saying you're out running and doing all kinds of things. I don't know. Like the check engine light, a great metaphor, because yeah, it's on. And when I was a kid, I had a car that had the check engine light on, and I just put like tape over it. Like, I don't need to see that anymore. And now it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. No, but you know what they say, hindsight's 20/20. So
Yeah, sure. Hindsight is 20/20. You can't have, you know. I don't know, a friend of mine who passed away. Rest in peace. Uh, he used to say, if you're constantly checking your blind spot, you're going to crash into the thing in front of you.
yeah, that's absolutely right.
You can't keep looking back too much. Take a glance every once in a while and go, oh yeah, I learned lesson there, and then keep your eyes.
Yeah. Keep your eyes on, well, yeah, like in my old profession, keep your eyes on the road, because you got to look around, but what's important is in front of you. So
Right. So your old profession. So you are now you're now retired.
well, retired.
You're semi-retired.
Yeah. It's basically just due to mucking up my neck and my nerves from my neck down, and the fact that I can't really turn to check blind spots so good. Yeah. So I figured driving a 40-ton missile down a highway probably not a great idea anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I I've lost. I have also noticed that. Like I don't have anywhere near the immobility that you have, but like my ability to turn, like not nearly as far as. Why can't I turn my head all the way around?
Yep. Yeah. And it just, it's a pretty good wake up call. It's just like, hey, maybe you might not want to do this anymore.
Hey, I have on another point on the human body and physical, like in the conversation. You mentioned you're drinking a ton of water, so I'll ask you: do you find that you get headaches?
Yes.
So here's what happened with me. I was like, I'm going to drink a ton of water, and so I started drinking a ton of water, and then I started getting headaches, a lot of headaches. And I told my doctor, I'm like, I'm drinking all this water and I'm getting all these headaches. He's like, yeah, you're flushing all the sodium out of your system. He had a friend of his who was a runner, and his runner friend said, I'm going to drink, like, at every stop, I'm going to drink water on this. And my doctor was, and they were running together. And he's like, I think that's a terrible idea. They were both doctors. He's like, I think that's a terrible idea. And the other doctor's like, no, I know what I'm doing. Collapsed before the race was over. Yeah, I'm going to recommend putting more salt in your diet along with your, not too much because you don't want to have a heart attack, but
Right.
you got to get the sodium levels. Otherwise, you'll get headaches.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I had never done this before, except like with, I've tried to diet and then not diet and then diet and then not diet. And it's worked out sometimes and sometimes not. But this is the first time I've actually ever incorporated technology into this, where I'm actually tracking, what I'm eating, whatever. And
Are you
just
doing that like on your phone?
yeah, just a little app that tracks everything. And then, the first month I kind of went back through and I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, well, you see where the problem is, you said earlier, you had I forget how you termed it, what, like a trigger? Mine was
Oh, trigger
always,
foods. The
yeah,
trigger foods for gastritis.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was soda. I just, I
What was
would,
it in the soda? Were you drinking sugar-free soda? I'm just curious.
yeah. I a long time ago, I stopped drinking like, regular soda. I've been drinking diet soda for the last 20 years, only because regular soda is far too sweet for my taste. So I like it kind of watered down a little bit, as it were. But I would hammer through a ton of that stuff a day, and then, yeah. I cut back to, I will have a soda occasionally now, just because I have it in my head, like cheat days on a diet. I do that every once in a while too, because I have it in my head that my body needs a little kick in the ass every once in a while. Hey, remember this? This is bad. And it never fails. My cheat days, the following day, I feel terrible. Just as like bloated and gross and not wanting to do anything. And so.
It's funny how we never learn from those things.
Yeah.
I didn't have cheat days, but what I would have is like occasionally I would get peer pressured into, just have this, whatever. Like I stopped eating meat 10 years ago, more. But occasionally I'll have fish. And very rarely someone will be like, hey, just try this thing. And so I'll go, okay, I'll try this. And it always, it's not even the physical feeling. It's just the guilt feeling of like, why did I do that?
Yeah, I don't like that either, but
I didn't get anything from that. Like I got this little, like tiny little like moment of what could have been pleasurable at some other point in my life, but not now. So, yeah, it's funny. And then I just wish that those lessons would stick with us earlier, because I would treat drinking the same way.
right.
Because when I was younger, I would drink. Oh man, I would drink like it was a full-time job.
Uh-huh.
I would drink like I wanted overtime. I mean, and when you drink like that, and you like how bad you feel the next day, why didn't that be like, why didn't that have a bigger impact?
Yep. Yeah.
Why are we wired like that?
I wish I knew. I question that all the time about stuff. I quit. I'm not going to say I quit drinking because I didn't, and I still to this day, if I find myself in a situation where I'm out having a good time and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, but just having fun, I'll find myself getting to a point where like, oh, you've done it again, sir. You're cooked now. You're bombed. You know, but I learned a long time ago after hitting it pretty hard and like you said, doing it full time. I don't like blacking out. I don't like, and I did it a lot.
Oh wow! I've
A
only
lot.
blacked out one time,
Oh, I've done
but
it a lot.
yeah, blacking out that is
Yeah.
not.
So that was a big thing and I learned that in my probably late 20s that it was something I didn't want to do anymore. So I would still go out
You would black
and
out a lot,
um
really? Like to the point where
okay
you have
to
to
me
go. What do you
yeah
mean by blackout?
yeah to me it's a lot. I would say there are probably in my lifetime maybe 2 weeks worth of days that I don't have any recollection of, specifically due to drink. I can remember drinking up to a point, and then there's
God.
yeah
Wow.
yeah yeah
The
yeah
one time I blacked out is a little terrifying. I blacked out when I was ironically on a movie. We were shooting in New Orleans because of the tax subsidy, and we we were in the quarter and we were drinking. There's a bar that's no longer there called Pravda, and Pravda before absinthe was made illegal.
I
They
have a
would
bottle of that in my cabinet too.
Yeah, they would serve absinthe before it was legal, and then it was finally legalized. But you can't get like old wormwood absinthe, like old world wormwood absinthe.
Right.
So we're there, we're drinking this like domestic absinthe, and it was fine. You know, it's like Pernod, like just licoricey, whatever. And
Mhm.
you're getting a little drunk, and you're getting a lot drunk because you drink flights of it. But this guy comes by, guy on the crew, a guy from Louisiana, comes by and he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a flask and he's like, "Do you want some real absinthe?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I hold up my glass, and the way that Pravda would do the absinthe, they would drip the absinthe through the
Mhm.
sugar cubes and the whole thing. But he just takes this flask and he pours it into my glass, like pours like a good 2 ounces, like
boy.
huge amount. And I'm like, what the hell? And it was like, did you ever see John Carpenter's what movie was it? Not In the Mouth of Madness. Uh it was the one where basically Satan was coming back like through these mirrors.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I know the one you're talking about.
Anyway, that movie, like if you remember like the evil that was in that swirling tube, that like kind of green
Uh-huh.
cloud of, well, that's what it looked like in my glass, just like this cloud of like swirling, you know, metallic green. I was like, holy, okay. And I
Ugh.
drank that, and I was like, whoa, this really is a hallucinogen. And like everything kind of went all wobbly on me. And then I don't remember anything. I woke up the next morning in my hotel room. How I got there, I have no idea. My somebody on the crew said they walked me home. But I walked home, or I got home, and then I went in my bathroom the next morning and there was just blood all over the bathroom floor.
Oh boy.
It looked like somebody was finger painting in it, like just smeared everywhere. And I was like, it looked like a crime scene from a TV show. I'm like, what the hell happened? And I immediately like take, inventory of myself. I'm like, do I have any cuts? What's going on? I don't find anything. I look in the bathtub. There's a broken glass in the bathtub.
Oh boy.
What the hell happened? And finally, I found a little nick on my toe, on the top of my foot. And I was like, I must have just squeezed out all this blood and just started smearing it around.
Jeez.
And that was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. Never. I am never going to get to a point where I black out ever again. Because that and me are not good bedfellows.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, mine is more about well, it's sort of about the same. It's just I don't like not being in control of my faculties, you know, and it just so now I have like an early warning system. If I have one or two, it's like, okay, I got a pleasant little buzz. It's time to drink something else now that doesn't have alcohol in it. But I mean, I've woke up in snowbanks.
Oh my God.
I woke up like a lot of people, just covered in urine or vomit. You know, I was just like, yeah. So I mean, it was enough experiences like that where like, okay, you need to stop.
Yeah, that's
So,
bad.
mm-hmm.
There were times when I was younger where I would like go to sleep in some bushes, but that was like a conscious decision. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so drunk. I can't even walk. And oh, look, there are some bushes. I'm going to go sleep in there.
I did that at Okachi days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the also waking up in my own vomit. So yeah, that stuff. I don't know. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, how do people do that and continue to do this, and it's enjoyable for them? I can't wrap my head around it.
I don't know that it's enjoyable. I don't know. Like, I'm going to make the assumption that you have had some alcoholics in your life, because we all have. Yep. I'm not like, it's not a commentary on you at all. It's just like, hey, we've all known an alcoholic.
No, I would say my dad was probably a high functioning alcoholic.
Yeah. I have people who've been very close to me who've been very low functioning alcoholics, but a lot of alcoholics in my life. And though I'm fortunate, lucky. This is luck. This has nothing to do with me, strength of character, nothing. I've just never been an alcoholic. I've never felt a compulsion to drink. Like so what happened was, I look at my trigger foods. Oh, coffee? Fuck. Alcohol? Fuck again. So then I'm like, all right, I'll just stop doing those. And I just stop.
Yep.
That's not something an alcoholic can do.
Right. I actually, at one point, thought that maybe I should seek treatment for alcoholism by and I went to a couple, and I'm like, I would hear the stories. I'm like, well, this isn't me. This isn't me. That's not, I can choose to walk away from it if I want to. I normally choose not to. Back in the day, I normally choose not to, but if, I have no problem anymore. And it's been for a while now. If somebody's like, hey, you want a beer? No thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, the alcohol for me was absolutely self-medication. It was just medication that I was not addicted to. But I chose, like, I'm going to get really drunk so that I don't have to deal with, like, the thoughts I'm having about
whatever
existing in this bullshit. And it was fun a lot of times. And a lot of fun resulted from that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, it was always fun, which is what, made me continue regardless. Well, plus when you're that age, you're not going to die. You're indestructible.
Yeah, definitely. In your mind, you're definitely not going to die.
Yeah, I don't remember thinking about death as much as I do now. I don't ever remember I mean, and it's not that I'm not scared to. In fact, I have the opposite problem. I'm scared I'm not going to die, because the thought of that is horrifying to me.
Oh my God, the fantasies that people like immortality. What the fuck? No,
Uh-huh.
no.
Yeah, right? Yep.
Immortality is that is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Apeirophobia, fear of eternity.
What is it called?
It's worth spelling. It's Apeiro phobia.
Herophobia. Okay.
Apeirophobia.
Well, good. Well, now I know.
Yeah, but that's fear of eternity, which is a bit like,
Yeah, I would say that's roughly the same thing.
yeah.
But I think a lot of that has to do with my own whatever is going on up here. Always feeling like, oh, I'm not going to be included. You guys all get to die, and I'm not going to get to. I have to watch all of it.
Oh,
That's the kind of nonsense that runs through my head. It's like I'm
I don't
gonna
think that's nonsense. I think that's like that's where that's number one where great fiction comes from. That's where like a great short story idea might come from. A character who is afraid that everybody else is going to get to go away
yeah
to this after life, whatever that is. Um, and they're going to be stuck here.
yeah
I think that's a great idea. Like it's as a piece of fiction. Um, yeah, it's that ability, I think, to separate, like to step out of your own thoughts and look at them that a lot of people can't do.
yeah. Oh, it takes a lot of practice to step out of your own head for a moment.
Right.
You know, thankfully therapy helps with that. So yeah, that's another thing too that I was always like, you need therapy. You got a weak mind. I cannot believe how incredibly stupid
Yeah.
and dumb and any other word you can think of to describe it. Just the moronic stuff that comes out of my own brain. But
Well, in all fairness, I think that you and I have a very similar like upbringing. Like we grew up
mm-hmm,
in a small town with small town minded people,
mm-hmm,
many small minded people. But I think that was of their time that they were just fed these ideas that they then fed to us. So we were constantly got a barrage of, I want to call it propaganda. It's full on straight up propaganda. Like, oh, you committed suicide. Or that guy committed suicide. What a weak willed person. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
okay, that's stupid. That's a stupid thing to say. Oh, Robin Williams, why did he kill himself? He had everything going for him. Everything, his whole life is so great. Millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, mental illness is like cancer. It's like liver cancer. It's like pancreatic cancer. It had nothing to do with your ability to like fend it off,
Yeah,
to be stronger in some way. There was a genetic predisposition that outside influences triggered. Boom. Same goes with mental illness. So you can walk through your whole life and be like, hey, everything's great. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I thinking about committing suicide all the fucking time?
I can sort of trace back in my own mind a lot of well, I mean, you're the sum of your choices in life. So I can I don't know a lot of them, but I can trace back a lot of things that have happened in my life that made me, like I said, walking through life like Hulk smashing everything. Well, my dad died 6 days before my 16th birthday. I mean, do you want to talk about anger issues? And then you don't want to, you don't, I didn't want to. I didn't want to seem like the angry guy always walking around like, oh, feel bad for me, because I'm throwing my thoughts onto somebody else, what they're going to think about me. How unhealthy is that? It's
That's
a, and,
huge trauma.
and I carried that and the Oh, well, this goes back to drinking too. The day my dad died, he had brain and lung cancer, and I spent the day he died. I spent with my friends getting hammered. So I got home at probably 10 11 o'clock because I was gone just and that was before cell phones and all that stuff. And my mom was like, I don't care what kind of shape you're in. We need to go tonight because he's probably not going to be here tomorrow. And so we went into the hospital, and he was in he was dying, and I passed out in the next room, and I just, you know, so I carry the guilt of that. I carry the guilt of not being able to say goodbye and I love you and everything else. And rather than seeking help, just like, nah, I'm strong enough to deal with it. I can deal with anything. Hello, dumb. Hello, dumb. So yeah, so it explains a lot of why I would run around like a rage monster all the time, even if I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah, it's that society telling you have to be stronger.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's
all the people who told us you have to be strong.
yeah. Nobody ever told me, oh, you need to do this now. You need to do that. Nobody told me, but I had it in my head that, okay, I got to man up now. And so I did what I thought manning up meant at age 16, which meant going to work, letting my schoolwork suffer, whatever it was. But at the same time, it also made me feel like, okay, well, I'm nailed to this town now. I can't go anywhere because I got to watch after my mom and my sister and whatever. And, so going to although for a short time I did move to Texas, but that was like moving to Mars for me. So I came back. But yeah.
Wait, you moved to Texas?
Yeah. Back in the 90s, I lived just outside of Houston for about 6 months.
I did not know this.
Yeah. I followed a girl down there, and yeah.
Like we do.
Yeah. Like we do.
But if anyone would be watching this, talking about suicide is very serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to just wrap that up.
Okay.
It's important to have these thoughts, these suicidal thoughts, and to not be ever think, oh, it's because I'm weak, which is horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my doctor, and now when you go to a doctor and you have a physical, he'll give me a questionnaire. Like, you just check off the boxes. Do you ever have thoughts of, committing suicide? Do you ever have, are you ever preoccupied with and they're all psychology questions about your own psychology. And so if you score below a certain point, then the doctor says, oh yeah, we need to refer you. And so at that point, he was like, it seems like the diagnosis for you would be depression, and it's an illness, like I said, like any of the other illnesses, you have no control over that. It's just sometimes will come on. I'm like, why? What happened? How did I catch this illness? And he's like, no. It'll just be a genetic predisposition. There's a gene in your body that got triggered, and then it turns on. And so we need to push it into remission. And so we're going to prescribe this, drugs to you. And Wellbutrin is a miracle drug for me.
Agree.
Oh boy, it's a miracle drug. So then it gets pushed into remission, and then you can wean yourself off of the drug, and you're like, oh, great. But now you can recognize the symptoms should it return, and you can treat it. But it's really important that people know that there is a treatment for this. It's not your fault. It's just, it is what it is. Like, I also lead a pretty charmed life. I decided when I was younger, which will segue us back into your next question.
Okay.
I decided I want to make movies when I was a little kid. I watched Japanese monster movies growing up from Toho, like Godzilla, Gamera, Ghidorah. I loved those. I loved Universal monster movies. I loved Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf, Wolfman. Lon Chaney, brilliant.
Yes.
And his dad, to this day, we all would love to see, anybody who's a true fan would love to see London After Midnight. So, and what else? I loved all the Hammer Studios monster movies, all the Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee.
Oh, yeah. Christopher
And
Lee is awesome.
yeah, the art style of Hammer Studios from the 60s especially was just genius. But I decided I want to do that. And then when I saw Star Wars, it was all over. It was like, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I ended up in visual effects, because I was like, I'm going to do that. When I was a kid, I like would draw on my t-shirts like ILM crew. Nobody knew what ILM was.
Industrial Light and Magic.
But we joke around now out here because Dennis Muren ran the company for a long time. I don't know if he's still there. He might still be there. But the people in the visual effects industry would jokingly call it industrial labor or incidental labor and Muren. I don't know that that's fair. I've never worked there. And I've had friends who've worked there who all have loved it. So there's nothing really bad to say about ILM. But that was my dream. I saw Star Wars and I was like, I'm going to do that. And then I ended up working on Babylon 5 and Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine, like all these starship flying around. I flew around starships.
Excellent. Now, that I did not know that you worked on those. Babylon 5, I was sort of into. Star Trek, yeah. Absolutely.
Space Above and Beyond was another one.
I remember that a little bit too. I remember the title. I can't remember the premise of that other than what it tells you in the title.
The creators of the show Space Above and Beyond were big fans of these old World War II war movies. And they wanted to create that same kind of, like the Marines, but in space, fighting this alien race. And it was all about the dynamics of this Marine platoon. And it was fun. It was fun to work on. The guys who created the show were executive producers on the X-Files, and they wrote a bunch of my favorite X-Files episodes. And
that was an excellent show too.
So that's how I got into the movie, how my interest in the movie industry developed. And then after that, it just became a matter of crowbarring my way into it. And that was that.
Interesting.
You could never do what I did now.
No. I suppose you have to have some kind of education in software for one.
That door is closed.
Well, then you got it in the nick of time.
I got in at exactly the right time when the transition from practical effects to computer effects was happening, and my interest just aligned with the universe perfectly at that moment. Now, first of all, if anybody said, how do I get into the movie industry doing visual effects? I'd say, don't. Absolutely don't. Like, why do you want to do visual effects? That'd be my first question. And then whatever their answer was, it would basically be don't. Back in the visual effects world, there are tiers of jobs. Like there are some jobs that require less, ability. Not necessarily classification, but ability. And one of those jobs is roto. Roto is when you make an outline around something that you want to cut out, and then you animate the outline so that you cut it out for the whole piece of footage. And then you can take that and place it in another, like you can composite it into another piece of footage. Well, the roto, that's just a repetitive task where you just go, move this, move forward 8 frames, move it again, go forward 8 frames, move it again. And then you review it and you go, oh, it's slipping. So you cut it down to every 4 frames, and then you subdivide down to every 2 frames if necessary, or even every frame. But that job can be done by anyone with about, they'll get okay at it in a week. And so we just offshore all that work to India, where you can pay them pennies on the dollar, what you would pay someone in the United States. Here's the problem with that. When you do that, these people say, hey, you know what? We could probably be good at the other things too. And so they expand out. And then they go, hey, look, we've actually put together a little demo reel of other types of work. And then the producers here go, oh, look, we can save even more money. And then they offshore those jobs. And then the people in India say, oh, we can even do more. And then eventually all the work is going there. So you can't compete with that.
Right.
This is the same thing as automation. Like, you can't compete with the driverless truck. You don't have to pay. There's no pension. There's no healthcare. There's no salary. All you have are upkeep costs for the equipment.
Yep.
It's the perfect way to remove the human component.
Right. And not only do you have the upkeep, eventually that's going to go away for the human being as well.
That's correct. Yeah, the upkeep will be, and in many cases, like I've noticed, hey, we don't even, if your vacuum cleaner breaks, throw it away, you buy a new one. My grandmother she was outside of Wausau. She would make horseradish.
Oh.
But you have to make that outside. You can't make it inside because you'll die.
Mm-hmm.
So she would make it outside, and she would wear like a vintage World War II gas mask while she made it.
Fascinating.
Yeah, if anybody wants to have a brilliant sleep aid, you can watch all of my videos either on Vimeo or YouTube, although I'm going to move everything over to YouTube at this point. The only thing there's anything left on Vimeo is because their DRM is less stringent. So if you use copyrighted music on YouTube, it'll get flagged instantly. Yep. And the only reason I've ever used copyrighted music is because I use music from the movie Minority Report within
the context of
my like demo of what I did on Minority Report. So that'll only ever be on Vimeo. Yeah, but you can share that.
Okay.
That's why it's there. It's in the public.
Right. Well, I want to ask just because it's polite. I don't want to assume anything. So.
Because when you make an assumption, you make an ass of you an umption.
That's right.
It's actually a line from the TV show The Odd Couple with Tony Randall and Jordan. I want you to open this. I want you to open it. Yeah, I wanted your reaction on camera.
I think you have sent this to me one other time because I want
you to read the headline out loud.
I will not read your fucking script.
By Josh Olson.
By Josh Olson.
That's right. Yeah. He goes into exactly why, people in Hollywood, if you have an idea and you want to send it to me, it really should be sent either through a lawyer or from your agent. Right,
because that idea can get stolen right out from under you.
Yeah, well, but if the idea, if I already was writing something, I write a lot too. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of writing. And if I decided I'm going to publish this thing that I've written, and then you send me an idea, and it's got even a vague similarity to what I've already written, then you can sue me for stealing your idea.
Yeesh.
Yeesh.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. If you look at it that way, then you're like, oh yeah. Mm. So.
All right. I suppose we should wrap this up. You have things to do and I have things to do. But it was fun talking to you as always, sir.
Yeah. Cut out all the boring bits.